Skills pay the bills, and we're going to look at some skill position players from the Jaguars and tell you exactly where they rank. We'll do it in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for joining me, Tony Wiggins, the host of the Locked On Jaguars podcast, where it's your team every day. And we thank you for making us your first listen. A quick reminder also that we are free to join us on our YouTube page. Make sure you hit that like button and hit the bell button so you get notifications anytime we have a show. You'll know. Also, if you listen to your audio podcast, wherever you do that at, make sure you tap in and don't miss an episode every single day here on Locked On Jaguars, because we are always glad to have you and be your team every day. Today's show is sponsored by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code Locked On NFL for $20 off your first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. What's up to my everydayers too? Wanted to give y'all some love, man. Y'all been showing me a lot of love, and I know it's gonna happen real soon because there's a game at home this Saturday. The Jags host the Dolphins, and I know I'm gonna get some love out there. I'm gonna have people screaming every day or Wig, and I appreciate that. So many different platforms that this show is heard on. We appreciate all of you. All right, so what we're gonna do, man, we're gonna break this thing down today and talk about the skill position players. As I promised yesterday, we were looking at the trenches. We were wondering if there's anything to worry about on both sides of the ball. We got through it. I'm not going to tell you what I said. If you want to know what I said, go back and listen to it. It is still available wherever you get your podcast. But today we got a little bit of sunshine for the show. Skill positions. I think the skill positions are a plus on offense. How about that? So I'll let you know that right away, so you don't have to fret that we're going to sit here and sing kumbaya all day, because that's not what we're going to do. We're going to be happy about the skill position on this team, and I'll go through it. I also want to address this. Can they outscore? They can outscore most people, right? We'll talk about that in segment 2. The fact that it should feel good that your team can line up and score points, because you had a real good team around here about 5 or 6 years ago that couldn't score a lot of points. So the defense had to be lights out. But the other question remains, and we'll hit this in segment 3, is great offense enough? That's a tricky one, because people will look at the recent champions and see the Rams and the Chiefs and think about all that great offense, but they won't understand that it was great defense that won them those games at critical times. So you kind of need everything, folks. You kind of need everything. But here we go. We're going to go through the skill positions today, and I'm going to tell you why I'm so thrilled and happy about the Jaguars' skill position players. It's been a long time since I can honestly say that the Jaguars have one of the 10 best skill position groups in the NFL. In fact, it's been a real long time. The last time I said that, it was when Fred Taylor, Jimmy Smith, Keenan McCardell, Tony Boselli, and of course, well, Tony Boselli is not a skill position player, but Mark Brunell were a part of that. They were definitely a top 10. They were like top 5, in my opinion, back then. But it's been a long time since we could say that they had an overall group of skill position players that were this good. They've had running backs when they had MJD, who led the league in rushing. They were adequate at quarterback back then with either Brunell or David Garrard or Leftwich, but it still was never, ever really like this. Starts and stops with the franchise quarterback. You wouldn't be a top 10 skill position team if you just had a mediocre quarterback. The Jaguars have a top 10 quarterback, easily a top 10 quarterback. I think by the end of this year, he's going to be a top 5 quarterback. And that's where it starts and stops. It's there, because no matter how good your play call is, no matter how good your head coach is, at some point, you'll get bogged down, man, if you can't score points and if you don't have it. The thing with the Jags is they have that, and they actually have the coaching too. So they sort of have a double dose of, we're going to come get you And what that means is they have the required prerequisite great quarterback, but they also happen to have a great coach who's a great play caller and a great schemer of game plans. And it works out for the Jaguars heavily, in my opinion. Why then is there a little bit of pessimism in my voice? Well, a little bit of it is in my voice because I've seen teams in the past have great offense and have that one game when it counts against a team that also has great offense but has more defense. And the team that has a combination of both ends up winning just about every single time. I think great offense can look like good offense when you're playing a great defense. And if that team has a very good offense to go with their great defense, that could be something that derails your season. And remember, everything that we're talking about with the Jags here, we're not talking about being relevant. And I'm going to have to make this announcement every single time. We're not talking about them just being relevant. We're not talking about them being competitive. We're talking about them having a chance to win it all. That has been my thinking from day one. I didn't want to rush it. I said, let them get Trevor in. I said, by the time year 3 comes around, we are not going to be talking about relevancy anymore. We're past that stage because they made the playoffs and won a playoff game last year. They won the division. We are now, and we're not thinking it's a one-hit wonder. We're thinking upward bound. We're thinking we're ascending here, and that's what we have these shows before the season. During the season, we'll have these shows about what's going on the field right then and there. Right now, we're having broad conversations about what we hope will occur, what we hope is going to happen, and if it doesn't, who do we blame? Because we're always going to sit here and point that finger at somebody. My finger is tingling right now because I'm waiting for the season to start for something to go wrong, and I'm like, there it is right there. But no, honestly, the Jaguars are at the very least going to be able to provide an exciting brand of football this season. So with that being said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to talk more about the individual skill positions on offense. In segment 2, we're going to talk about whether or not they can beat real good teams by outscoring them. And then in the third segment, is great offense enough? There's not a definitive answer for any of those questions. Like, it can be, but the circumstances have to be correct. The I word has to work in our favor. I word meaning injuries. It has to work in our favor totally in order for this. See what this is called? It's almost the same as if you're just thinking all offense without everything else being battened down. You know what it's just like? It's like 2017 when it was all defense. And the offense had to play a certain way, and they couldn't make any mistakes. And the defense definitely couldn't give up things. We don't want to be placed in a box like that where there's only one way to win, because that's never, ever, ever a good thing. That's never a good situation, or never a good thing for us to be into. Nobody wants to play football that way. And you as a fan shouldn't want that to be there. Although, just like I said, it is way, way, way more exciting than it being one-sided the other way. So there's always a little bit of a plus and a little bit of a minus to it, and we'll try to iron that out for you. All right, so get back. We'll go through each of the position groups, and I'll tell you which ones are the strongest and which one of them rank in the top 10. I'm going to tell you, I think all of them do, and that's why collectively I think that they are all in the top 10 also. We'll do all that in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars after I let you know about today's sponsor, which is Gametime. Gametime.co. That's right. Gametime is the real deal. If you are into buying tickets for your favorite events, you should not be stressed out doing it. You're trying to have a good time, right? So Gametime is the fastest and easiest way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. They got killer deals on last-minute tickets, the best price guaranteed. You can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped over how much fun you'll have. Flash deals and last minute tickets, easy to find and easy to buy tickets for every kind of event in your area. Images of the seat views, and I think that's really, really important, and lowest guaranteed price. Event cancellation protection, job loss protection, all of those great things. You can get images of your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. Snag the tickets without stress with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the promo code Locked On NFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code Locked On NFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. And I'm guaranteed to be here with you every single day here on Locked On Jaguars, because that's exactly what I do. I am Tony Wiggins, the host of the Locked On Jaguars podcast, where it's your team every day, and we thank you for making us your first listen. All right, man, let's go through these skill positions. Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence is everything you want in a third-year quarterback. I think more than just his skill set, which is easy for me to talk about. What you really want is a guy that has the confidence of everybody else on that team, and they do. He does. He does. They all believe in him, and that's the first thing. Now, his backup, C.J. Beathard, the club has more confidence in him than the fans do. The fans like the third string guy, Rourke. Fans like the backup, and then they like the backup to the backup more than they like the backup. It's a weird thing, but it's a pretty good group. But the group is only as good as the first guy, which is Trevor, and I think that is outstanding when you consider that he's one of the better young quarterbacks and probably one of the better quarterbacks in the entire National Football League. So it starts and stops right there, because you can have better. There are teams around the league that may have better players at other positions. Well, there are teams that in the past have had players at really good players at skill positions, and their quarterback has been mediocre. And they've been able to put up a bunch of numbers. But still, the thing that I'm talking about, that confidence, okay, I'll name him. It's been Kirk Cousins, okay? His numbers say that he's way better than that. He's had great skill position players over the years. They put up big numbers. They won a lot of games. I think they won 12 or 13 games in the regular season last year. But who really thought that they were going to challenge anybody to win anything big? Nobody, because at the end of the day, Kirk Cousins doesn't have a toolbox as big as Trevor Lawrence and some of the other great quarterbacks. And that intangible thing is what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the fact that your stats say you're this. I'm not talking about how many guys that you were able to help get into the all-pro conversation, or how many games you won in the regular season. I'm talking about an overall feeling of who's afraid of you. How far can you carry the team? That's the thing that I'm talking about. And we have that. So no one else can say that we don't have that. Let me go to another group real quick, the tight end group. One that I was not a fan of. I have not been a fan of the Jaguars tight ends probably since this organization got going. And I always wondered, how come other teams can find 2, 3, and 4? I saw Baltimore with a kid named Kohler last night, and he's like their third tight end, and he was getting off. And it led me to think the way I used to feel. The way I used to feel was they always find some 6'5" dude that can run seam routes and hand catch the ball, and he can block. And for years, the Jaguars never, ever, ever were able to get that going. That is not the case now. With Evan Ingram, Garrett Prince, Luke Farrell, and then the kid that is drafted in the second round this year, the Jaguars have a room full of people that can play. And they're not just different types that just, okay, well, he's this kind of guy. So when he's in the game, they're going to call that. And this is what he is. And when he's no, they can all play. They can absolutely all play. All 4 of the guys that I assume are going to be on the Jaguars team this year and play. They can absolutely get it in and play. Brenton Strange, I'm wondering where he's going to fit in. I think they're going to play them all. Of course, Evan Ingram is the one that's going to play more than anybody. But Brenton Strange can play, man. He can absolutely get it. I don't think he's gangbusters or lights out, but he doesn't have to be right now. But he provides some toughness. He can also catch the ball. I don't think he's great. And I'm not going to sit here and I'm going to tell you that it wasn't a head scratcher of a pick when they did it, or that they might have been able to fortify another area in their team a little bit, maybe another offensive lineman or maybe another D tackle, if they knew that the guys that they had, like if they knew that Farrell or Garrett Prince were going to do that, you wonder if they did. But I think the Jaguars went into the draft independently thinking that they were going to get tougher, to be more goal line ready team, and that's why you saw Bigsby, who I'll mention in a minute with the running backs, and that's also why you saw Brenton Strange. Tougher, hard-nosed, provides an element of you ain't getting me down right here, right now. I'm gonna drag you a couple of yards. They got a little bit of that going for them, and it helps this team be tougher down in the zone. So this is a very good group. Would I put it in the top 10? If I did, it would be at the back end of the top 10, but it is really, really right there. In fact, I'm going to put them in the top 10. I'll say they're somewhere between 8 and 10. They are really, really right there. So there's two groups when you include Trevor Lawrence being a top 10 quarterback. I don't care who his backup is. You can come in and get my neighbor who's about 65 and make him third string, and I think it would still allow the Jaguars to say, yeah, we got a top 10 quarterback group because our one quarterback is that good. I think they have a top 10 tight end group because of the depth. And it's probably me also knowing the roster and knowing the guys that's on the roster. But even if you look at it from the fact of the same way we looked at it at the quarterbacks, that Evan Ingram had such a great season. He was one of the 10 best tight ends in the league last year. So when we start counting the backups, yeah, I think Baltimore's probably number one. So, a team like I think Baltimore's probably number one. Now, let's hit the running backs and receivers. The receivers, I believe it's a top 10 group, but I think it's a bit of a push. And the reason why I think it's a bit of a push is because there are some teams that have some fabulous receivers in tandem. When you talk about Cincinnati and you talk about Philly, Tampa, Miami, there are some teams that have some guys, even in Dallas with CeeDee Lamb and Brandon Cooks. That's nothing to shake a stick at, right? So there's some nice wide receiver groups and groupings. Devontae Adams and that kid that they signed from New England, who's going to be very familiar with that offense out there. Just so many teams, Debo and Brandon Ayuk. So is Calvin Ridley and Christian Kirk and Zay Jones, is that group better than some of the ones I mentioned? Probably not, but they are, I'm telling you, they're right there. They're right there. Like, an interesting question is this. I think Calvin Ridley is what elevates them over a team like Pittsburgh. And even though Pittsburgh has Deontay Johnson and they have George Pickens and they got some guys that's caught some balls, what elevates Jaguars is that Calvin Ridley is a better player than anybody I just mentioned from Pittsburgh. That to me is what elevates them, because I think Calvin Ridley is a bona fide star. I'm going to talk about the running backs, and then I will tell you whether or not I believe this team is good enough to win games where they just got to outscore people. I'll do all that in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. Well, I'll tell you first, our partners at eBay Motors have teamed up with Locked On Fantasy Football host Vinny Iyer to bring you some of the best fantasy football picks each week, all season long. Whether you're prepping for a draft or scouting the waiver wire, every week we're going to provide you players that are guaranteed to fit on your roster. So with draft prep underway, upcoming season, let's see who Vinny has picked out for us on this week's eBay Guaranteed Fit Fantasy Picks of the week. There's my man right on cue, Calvin Ridley. If you're looking for a player to take a fantasy football draft who will spark his two new team's offense and yours, and also help you speed to victory. Then use a luxury pick on Jaguars wide receiver Calvin Ridley. Ridley has looked sleek during the first mini camp and the 2 preseason games in Jacksonville and ready to rev up again after his time in Atlanta, taking full advantage of riding with rising Trevor Lawrence as his quarterback. Now, Vinny R from Locked On Fantasy Football is going to help you win your fantasy championship, and eBay Motors knows the championship team is about each player being a perfect fit. Same with your vehicle. With eBay Guaranteed Fit and over 122 million parts and accessories for your vehicle right at your fingertips, you can make sure your ride stays running smoothly. Air filters, brakes, batteries, tail lights, alternators, shocks, struts, you name it, eBay Motors has it. And they'll make sure it's the right fit for your car, because eBay Guaranteed Fit helps you understand exactly what part you need for your vehicle the first time. So go forth, switch gears, crank the AC, and say goodbye to sweating if your ride needs a little fixing up, because now you know you'll always be set up for success from the get-go with eBay Guaranteed Fit. Everything your vehicle is calling for is just a click away. For the parts and accessories that fit your vehicle, look for the green check. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices at ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. And you're back here watching Locked On Jaguars with me, or listening to Locked On Jaguars with me, because it's your team every day, and we thank you for making us your first listen. Make your next listen watch Locked On NFL. Your next watch and your next listen should be Locked On NFL. The Wednesday edition will feature me and James Rapine, but every single day, Monday through Friday, you can get a Locked On NFL host or two to tell you what's going on in the world of sports. Make sure you tap in wherever you get your podcast, and you can subscribe for free on the YouTube page that is Locked On NFL. Okay, so look at the running back groups. What we've done here is talk about the skill positions on offense being a plus situation, how the Jaguars can outscore most teams, not all of them, and there's a great offense enough. But first, we have to look at the running back groups. This is a group I'm super excited about, because once again, we are gone past the point of just having one really good starter, another guy that's okay, that provides an element. Remember when they had Fournette and he was your starter, and then they had Corey Grant, who was your change of pace guy, who was really stiff, who ran real fast from point A to point B, but didn't have a whole bunch of wiggle in it. And then after that, you have a couple of guys that know how to field punts or kickoffs on special teams. And then another guy who may be a veteran who can pass protect. And gone are the days where you just fill your roster up with filler, right? You're going to get the hits played with you. It's like going to a concert and you're seeing a vintage group and they play all of your hits. Well, guess what? That's what's going to happen here. You're going to get the hits, because even when they make substitutions, there's somebody that's going to be able to whoop on you a little bit. And it doesn't matter who it is. If they take Christian Kirk out and put Jamal Agnew in, and they run a play that's designed for him, you're still in trouble if you can't tackle people in space. Right? Right. What if they put one of the young guys in on offense where they have two running backs, and throw one of them in motion, and that one that goes in motion is named Travis Etienne, and you still got to guard him like he's a wide receiver, but you'll have to guard him with a linebacker, because that's the set that you had in. That's an advantage Jacksonville. There's talk that Tank Bigsby is a quality starter amongst the NFL type running backs, and he is. But Tank Bigsby is I'm not saying he's this guy, but what I am telling you, if you want to talk about running style, it's the same style as Jonathan Taylor. Very similar. Maybe not as fast, but he gives you a little bit of that same stuff. And while Travis Etienne is a little bit like Alvin Kamara, and then Dearness Johnson and Hasty behind them, they're a little bit of everything, and they have their chips on their shoulders too, where they're running the ball all crazy and hard, and they have their skill set. Hasty can really catch the ball out of the backfield. There are no weaknesses. I'm not telling you that they're full caliber starters, but this does look like a lot like Philadelphia. It looks a lot like those teams like New England back in the day, where they just hit you with the hee-haw, and whoever they put in there, man, they have their own little bit of a skill set, and they'll give you problems. Kansas City's the same way. So kudos to the team building aspect of saying everybody has to be a playmaker when your number's called. We're not just going to have you here because you're a good workout dude, or have you on the roster because you do this little special teams thing. If you can play special teams but can't play from the line of scrimmage, then you probably won't be here in Jacksonville. They need people to do both. They need people to do both. The question is great offense enough? It's enough to keep you excited. It's enough for you to not be out of any ball game. But to win a championship, no, they're going to have defensive players step up. They are going to have defensive players step up. And so far, the medical tent hasn't been really nice to some of the guys that are playing interior on the interior defensive line. But I do think that there are enough playmakers on defense where hopefully the offense won't have to be enough, and everyone from around the league will know it. The Jaguars just have to get guys that are just like the Chiefs, that are just like the Rams before them. They have to get guys that are closers and can make stops in critical junctures during the game to help your offense. You need a team that can stop the other team from scoring when your offense has scored. You also need a team that if you're down 2 scores and your offense scores once, you need to be able to get them the ball back. And then you need to be able to close the game out. So is great offensive enough to be excited, to make you excited about the season, to be exciting that you're not out of every single game? Yes. That you'll have a good time watching the games every week? Absolutely. Is it enough to win a championship by itself? No. You need opportunistic people on defense. And I do think in order for you to advance, you just need guys that know how to get stops and close people out. All right, I'm going to close you out by saying this. Take care of each other. Make sure that you check in to Locked On Jaguars every single day, and Locked On NFL. Make that your next watch. But we love when you make your first listen Locked On Jaguars. Make sure you subscribe and hit that bell on YouTube. Make sure you tap in every single day so you don't miss an episode. All right, man. So we will see you next time here on Locked On Jaguars. You guys take care of each other, and I'll take care of you and take care of me by coming back tomorrow. Shout out again to my everydayers, and we'll see you tomorrow here on Locked On Jaguars.